She said her garden grew best when fed with secrets. When I stepped onto the old dirt path leading toward grandmother's house, I couldn't shake the unease crawling down my spine. The air felt heavier here, thick and choking, saturated with a sickly sweet fragrance that twisted my stomach into knots. God, what was that smell? It was floral yet disturbingly pungent, as if decay had been masked with perfume. Grandmother's cottage stood cloaked beneath the shadows of towering trees, ivy creeping over cracked walls like hungry fingers. As a child, I loved this place. Now, it filled me with an unsettling dread. My chest tightened at the sight. Something was terribly wrong. I approached the gate, rusted hinges screaming as I pushed it open. "Grandma?" I called hesitantly, my voice barely more than a whisper. No response, only silence. My eyes drifted toward the garden beside the house, the source of that overpowering aroma. I froze, breath catching in my throat. Oh my God, what had she done here? The garden was breathtaking in the most horrific way. Plants flourished with unnatural vibrancy, their leaves impossibly green, blossoms blooming wildly out of season. Roses, lilies, and orchids grew tangled together, their colors feverishly vivid beneath the cloudy twilight sky. But something was wrong, very wrong. Among the blooms stood strange plants I'd never seen before. Dark vines twisted upward from the soil like gnarled, skeletal fingers, curling as if reaching for help. Large flowers hung limply, their petals drooping grotesquely, almost resembling human faces frozen in agony. A chill crept down my spine, sweat beating coldly at my temples. I took another step, compelled by morbid curiosity. Then, the whispering began. At first, I thought it was just the wind rustling through leaves, a quiet murmuring, barely audible. But as I drew closer, I realized with bone-chilling clarity, it wasn't the wind at all. Anna. Anna. My heart skipped, then thundered violently. Jesus, had I heard my own name whispered from those cursed plants? Anna, come closer, the whispers coaxed softly, insidiously. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but my legs were leaden, bound to the earth by fear. I stood frozen, wide-eyed and breathless, my ears ringing with panic. Suddenly, an icy hand grasped my shoulder, and I shrieked, spinning around in terror. Oh, good Lord! I gasped, staggering backward. Grandmother stood before me, her pale, wrinkled face breaking into a gentle, almost innocent smile. But something lurked behind those eyes, something ancient, something secretive. Oh, Anna, my dear, she said softly, squeezing my shoulder tighter. Didn't anyone tell you? You shouldn't listen to the flowers after dark. She leaned in closer, her breath cool against my ear as she whispered. They grow best when fed with secrets, and some secrets are darker than others. A shudder tore through me as she stepped back, still smiling sweetly. She gestured toward the house, as if nothing was wrong. Come, my dear. Dinner is ready. As I followed her reluctantly, I glanced back once more at the garden, its flowers now swaying gently despite the complete absence of wind, almost as if they were alive, watching me. God help me, I thought, feeling the chill burrow deeper into my bones. What secrets had grandmother fed to these plants, and whose voices had I heard whispering my name? Dinner passed in tense silence, broken only by the faint clinking of silverware and grandmother's unsettling hum, soft, rhythmic, yet utterly devoid of warmth. I glanced across the table, observing her carefully. Beneath her pleasant facade lingered something sinister, a hidden truth swirling just behind her faded gray eyes. Every glance she cast toward me seemed probing, as if she were dissecting my thoughts. The oppressive scent from the garden had seeped into the house, clinging stubbornly to the drapes and walls, settling like dust on my tongue. Each breath felt tainted, heavy with secrets best left undiscovered. My stomach twisted painfully. I had to know. I had to understand. Grandma, my voice trembled despite my best efforts. What's happening out there, in your garden? She froze, her spoon halfway to her lips. For a split second, her face contorted, revealing a brief flash of something dark, something utterly malevolent. But then it vanished, replaced instantly by her familiar, gentle smile. "Oh, dear Anna," she sighed softly, shaking her head as if amused by childish questions. "Gardens have always thrived on secrets. Ours is just, special." Before I could press further, she rose abruptly, gathering the plates with sudden vigor. "Time for bed now, darling," she said, voice firm, eyes glittering dangerously. "You must be so tired after your journey." She left me sitting alone, bewildered and fearful. Sleep was impossible. I drifted through the house aimlessly, shadows stretching long beneath pale moonlight filtering through dusty windows. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath my feet like whispered warnings, "Leave, leave, leave." I found myself drawn back toward the garden, as if summoned by invisible strings. Stepping outside, the cool night air washed over me, but did little to calm my racing heart. Under moonlight, the garden transformed into something nightmarish. Flowers glowed faintly, casting eerie halos on the twisted shapes of vines and branches. Everything seemed to pulse softly, rhythmically, as if breathing in unison. And then came the whispers again, stronger, clearer this time. "Help us. Anna, please." Oh God, it was unmistakable now, voices I recognized from my childhood. Voices of villagers who had disappeared, relatives we had mourned. My blood froze, limbs trembling violently. A sickening realization dawned upon me. The garden was alive with their souls. Suddenly, movement caught my eye. Grandmother stood at the garden's edge, her frail figure illuminated ghostly white beneath the pale moon. "Oh, sweet Anna," she whispered softly, her voice honeyed but edged with steel. "I warned you not to listen. But you've always been curious, haven't you, dear?" I opened my mouth, desperately trying to speak, but my voice choked into silence. "They're hungry, Anna," she continued calmly, her eyes never leaving mine. "Secrets alone aren't enough. They want more. They always want more. Grandma, what have you done?" I gasped, voice barely audible above the frantic whispers swirling around me. She smiled, a chilling expression void of any warmth. "Only what was necessary to protect us, my dear. You see, the garden takes our secrets, yes, but it gives so much in return. Life, beauty, and strength beyond imagining." She stepped forward, her frail hand reaching out toward me. I recoiled instinctively, heart hammering wildly. "You hear their voices clearly now, don't you?" She whispered conspiratorially. "They've chosen you, Anna. The garden wants your secrets next." "No." I cried, stumbling backward. Panic surged through me, wild and unstoppable. "Oh my God, no." But grandmother only smiled, her pale lips parting slightly as the flowers and vines behind her writhed, their whispers rising into anguished screams, an unholy symphony echoing through the darkness. My name pierced the night, chillingly desperate. "Anna. Anna, stay with us forever." I spun around, racing blindly toward the house, but their voices chased me, a cacophony of wails begging, pleading, demanding my soul. And just before slamming the door behind me, one whisper sliced clear above the rest, chilling me to the very marrow. "Don't leave us, Anna. She fed us all. And now, she'll feed you too." Collapsing against the locked door, breath ragged, eyes wide with terror, I knew one thing with dreadful certainty. This garden would not let me leave alive. I sat on the floor, shuddering violently, my body pressed desperately against the locked door. Outside, the voices continued, a haunting chorus of anguish and despair. They whispered my name, their sorrowful pleas penetrating the very fabric of my sanity. "Anna, join us. Please, it hurts." "Oh God," I whimpered, burying my head in trembling hands, tears stinging my eyes. "Please make it stop." But the house offered no refuge. Shadows danced grotesquely across walls, and every creak of timber sounded like laughter, dark, mocking laugh. The trapdoor was hidden beneath the rug in the cellar, just like Elias's letter had said. When I pried it open, the hinges groaned like a dying animal. A cold draught spilled out, damp and foul, thick with the scent of wet earth and rot. I held the lantern tighter, watching the flame flicker as if afraid to follow me down. I wasn't sure what scared me more, what I would find, or what might be waiting for me. With trembling steps, I descended into the dark. The tunnel was narrow, the ceiling low, the walls packed with root-veined soil. Vines pulsed gently along the walls like veins beneath skin, alive, almost breathing. Every few steps, my light would catch something strange, old bones tangled in roots, rusted tools, the remnants of offerings left long ago. And always, whispers. Soft, sorrowful. They murmured through the walls like wine through hollow skulls. She's coming, the chosen one. Scroll the chamber of remembrance. The tunnel opened into a chamber, circular, domed, and lit by faint bioluminescent moss clinging to the walls. In its center stood a monument of twisted roots, spiraling upward into the darkness above. Embedded in the rootwork were dozens of skulls, each one grinning through decay, eyes eternally watching. At its base, a stone altar, soaked dark with the blood of centuries. On the wall behind it, etched in ancient script, were the words, "To feed the soil is to preserve the blood." I stumbled back, choking on bile. "Oh God," I whispered. "It's all true. Deciduous tree, the ritual of bloodroot." Among the relics strewn around the chamber, I found another book, wrapped in bark, sealed with a lock that matched Elias's iron key. I opened it, my hands shaking. Inside were pages of rituals, written in a blend of Old English and Latin. Drawings of human bodies bound in vines, of roots threaded through hearts and tongues. Of the bloodroot ceremony, a rite passed from mother to daughter, meant to bond the family to the garden eternally. The soil remembers all. The spirit, when bound, becomes sustenance. In blood, growth. In death, bloom. There were names, my ancestors. Each generation had sacrificed someone, a traitor, a stranger, sometimes, even a loved one. Their secrets were whispered into the roots, and their souls fed the garden's life. And now, it was my turn. I visions in the roots. The monument of skulls began to glow. I froze. The roots shifted, curling upward, and from them emerged a face I knew, my mother. Her form was barely solid, woven from mist and memory. Her eyes, filled with sadness. "Anna," she whispered, "it was never meant to be this way." Tears welled in my eyes. You were part of this." "I fought it," she said, voice trembling. "I refused the ritual. And the garden took me anyway." The roots clung tighter around her ghostly limbs. "You have the choice, I didn't," she said, voice cracking. "Break the chain, Anna. Burn the root. End this madness." "But, if I do," I whispered, "what happens to you?" A long silence. Then, softly, "We all go." The walls groaned. The roots writhed violently now, sensing my defiance. Whispers turned to screams, the voices of my ancestors begging. "Keep the blood. Feed the garden. Don't let us die in vain." And somewhere, far above, grandmother howled, a sound not human, filled with fury and fear. Fire Anna's choice. I stood before the altar. The lantern trembled in my hand. One match. That's all it would take. The roots hissed. The skulls moaned. And I took a deep breath, struck the match, and whispered, "Let the garden starve." Whoosh. Flame met ancient wood. The roots screamed. The soil split open, exhaling centuries of pain. Skulls cracked. The whispers shrieked one final time, and then silence. The fire roared higher, chasing me up the tunnel. I barely escaped the cellar as the earth beneath the house collapsed, swallowing the garden whole. And then, it was gone. Outside, the sun broke over the horizon for the first time in days. The garden was no more. Only ash remained. I stood trembling on the porch, my heart hollow, my soul scarred, but free. And from the wind, I heard her voice one last time. "Thank you, Anna." The garden was gone. Ash choked the air, clinging to the ruins where once vibrant life had writhed and whispered. Blackened vines lay like charred veins across the yard, and the soil, once unnaturally lush, now cracked beneath the weight of silence. But the silence was not peace. I still heard them. At first, I thought it was the wind. A trick of grief and exhaustion. But as the days passed, the whispers returned. Soft at first, almost gentle. "Anna. You did what was right. But we remember." I shook them off, convincing myself it was trauma, stress, a mind unraveling after everything I'd seen. But when I heard her voice, I stopped pretending. "You broke the chain, my dear, but you didn't break the root. Grandmother." Her voice echoed from the corners of empty rooms, from behind fogged mirrors, from the shadows beneath the floorboards. I began to sleep with the lights on. I stopped opening doors fully, afraid of what I might see standing behind them. The mirror. One night, I stood before the bathroom, in my other hand, the letter from Elias. Crumpled, smudged, barely legible now. But one sentence echoed louder than ever. "You can either bury the secret, or let the world bleed with it." I had two options. Burn the ledger. Erase it all. Hide the truth. Protect my family's name. Protect her. But the root would remain. Dormant, until someone else heard the whispers. Reveal everything. Send the ledger to the press. The university. The world. Expose my grandmother for what she was. Expose myself. And risk becoming a pariah, reviled, feared, cursed. I sat there for hours. The mark on my skin pulsed with every heartbeat, aching for a decision. And then I remembered her face, my grandmother, smiling, gently braiding my hair, with hands that buried bones. Fire the truth sets fire. At dawn, I walked into town with the ledger tucked beneath my coat. I handed it to the sheriff. Then to the historian. Then the journalist from out of state. And I told them everything. Chains the aftermath. The investigation tore through the town like wildfire. Graves unearthed. Secrets spilled. Families shaken. History rewritten. The garden had been a feeding ground. A sacred rot. A curse hidden in plain sight. But I had broken the silence. And in doing so, I broke the spell. The mark on my arm. It vanished within a week. The voices. Gone. But so were the memories. The villagers no longer remembered the garden. Or the victims. Or even my grandmother. Like the soil had swallowed them again, this time, for good. Sheaf of rice, the final bloom. I left town shortly after. Moved far away. Changed my name. Sometimes, I dream of vines crawling across my ceiling, of whispers tickling my ear just as I wake. But they're only dreams. A few months ago, I planted a small flower in my new home. Just one. A fresh start. But this morning, I noticed something strange. The flower was growing fast. Too fast. And beneath its leaves, the soil felt warm. Candle final line. Some secrets don't die when you bury them. They bloom.